Welcome to the Systems Alliance. My name is Jexy, and in this video, we're going to go over this weekend's box office where Spider-Man comes in not just number one, but also sets a record for a Tuesday, 6-day opening. So Spider-Man Far From Home set the 6-day opening record, and now that means it opened on Tuesday, so it had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and in that 3-day frame domestically, it did gather over 91 million, and then for its regular 3-day weekend, which was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it brought in an estimated 93.6 million. So in total, it's just topping $185 million for its domestic opening, which is huge. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic for this movie. Spider-Man Far From Home brought in $244 million from international markets this weekend, and it's total for international markets, because it did open last weekend in some territories, including China, now stands at $395 million. So combined with its domestic total, Spider-Man now sits at over $580 million in basically what's an opening weekend and a half. So this is absolutely huge, once again, because this movie only cost $160 million to make. So yeah, you have your marketing and everything on top of that, but Spider-Man's already turned a profit for Disney, Sony, Marvel. I mean, this is an automatic hit, and what really helps is the budget being so low. I mean, coming off of Avengers, where the budget's $320 million plus, and then all the marketing, I mean, $160 million, and if you haven't seen it yet, it is great. Audiences are loving it, so it seems like it's going to have some legs as well. I expect this movie to top $1 billion. We'll have to see where it falls when it gets to the top Spider-Man movies of all time. Those can rank pretty high once you factor in for inflation, but I think this is definitely a worthy contender, and it's definitely going to make more than Spider-Man Homecoming. In case you were wondering, the top 3 Spider-Man movies, which are all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, once you factor in for inflation, they're somewhere between 1.1 and 1.3 billion dollars. So can this movie catch them? It definitely could. It's just going to have legs, and we're not quite sure how that looks yet because it just opened. However, I think it definitely hits the $1 billion mark, as I said. And once again, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And make sure you stay, not just until the end credits, stay until the lights come on in the theater, because this goes all the way till the end with definite surprises. Coming in at number 2 this weekend is Disney and Pixar's Toy Story 4, dropping 42.5% to bring in $34.3 million. And so that means domestically, its total now stands at just under $307 million. And it also brought in $43 million from international markets. And that total now stands at over $343 million. So in total, it's at just under $650 million worldwide. Now, this is a great total for Toy Story because Pixar movies are generally released very slowly overseas. So they do generally have long lives, and obviously domestically too. This one is playing very well compared to Toy Story 3, and I think we're going to see $1 billion out of Toy Story 4. They always seem to track just a little bit better than they seem if you just take a look at them that week, just because they have really good legs. So once again, $1 billion I'm predicting for Toy Story 4. Once you factor in for inflation, 4 Pixar movies have hit the $1 billion club, which I expect Toy Story 4 to make. And those movies are Finding Dory, Toy Story 3, The Incredibles 2, and of course, Finding Nemo. People just love Toy Story, and once again, that's why I'm saying $1 billion for Toy Story 4, because I think it's just going to keep raking in the money overseas. Now, coming in at number 3 is Universal Pictures' movie Yesterday. Now, Yesterday dropped around 37% this weekend to bring in $10.75 million. So that's a pretty good total, because overall, the movie only cost $26 million to make. That was its budget. It also brought in $8 million from overseas territories, and its total stands at over $56 million. So obviously in a $26 million budget, it's only its second weekend. I definitely think this one's going to turn a profit for Universal. And if you haven't checked it out, let me know what you think. Now, coming in at number 4 and costing pretty much the same as number 3 with a $27 million budget, also coming out last week, but in this case, already turning a nice profit for Warner Brothers is Annabelle Comes Home. Annabelle dropped 52% to bring in $9.75 million, and its domestic total now stands at a little over $50 million. But once you factor in its international total, this movie comes in just under $135 million worldwide, and with a $27 million budget, this is a very big hit for WB. And it is interesting that a horror movie is bringing in this much from overseas. I mean, it brought in more than double its domestic total from overseas this weekend, brought in 20 million, but there is something interesting with this. Now, apparently, Annabelle is also in the DC universe, or at least exists there. It's very hard to see, but you can actually catch the doll in Aquaman. It's really hard to see, actually, so you're going to have to rewatch that one. But where you can really actually catch it and see it just kind of sitting there is in Shazam. So take a look at those movies again if you do want to see this doll in them. Interesting that those universes are connected, although not impossible because Warner Brothers has both of those franchises. But let me know your thoughts on how these two are going to fit together, if they ever will, or if it's just a nice Easter egg to have. But still, great profit for the studio. Now, coming in fifth this weekend, holding very strong, dropping just 25%, finishing with $7.6 million, is Disney's Aladdin live-action remake. Now, I think I said in my previous video, which I know has been a while, but I didn't think I saw it getting $1 billion. I definitely know I didn't see it getting to the original cartoon Aladdin once you factor in for inflation, which is right around $1.1 billion, and I still don't see that happening. However, the way Aladdin is going right now, I think it is going to reach $1 billion. While its domestic total now stands at over $320 million, it actually brought in $16.2 million internationally, and that total now stands at over $600 million. So over $921 million for this movie, and its drops are just so small, maybe because there's just not enough out there to compete with it, but whatever the reason, I mean, this thing is definitely tracking towards $1 billion. Once again, not going to hit adjusted for inflation original Aladdin, but wow, this is definitely a huge hit. And especially when you look at the reviews, mixed reviews, pretty impressive for Disney. Got to give it to them, despite what anyone might think regarding the actual movie or Jafar. So that wraps up the top 5 for this weekend. Let me know your thoughts. But before I go, I did want to address Avengers Endgame. Now, why is that? It's been in theaters forever. Well, as you may have known, they did bring it back into theaters basically to catch Avatar. That's really the only reason they would have done that. And they wanted to catch it in basically its initial release, because it's not really a re-release if it never actually went out of theaters. They just put it into more theaters again. And of course, a lot of Marvel fans out there definitely want to support it, so they keep on going. Now, the total now stands at $2.772 billion. Avatar, meanwhile, stands at $2.788 billion, so only $15 or so million away at this point. Yeah, it's a given. Avengers Endgame will become, unadjusted, the biggest movie of all time worldwide. It will pass Avatar, and, you know, that's pretty good. When it first opened up, it had such a big opening, the biggest opening of all time, pretty much when you even factor in inflation, because the larger openings are the newer movies, such a big opening. I mean, the thing after week one, if you can call a pace, was on pace for over $4 billion. Then it slowed down. It's like, okay, well, it's definitely not going to hit that, so it's not reaching Titanic territory once you factor in for inflation. Maybe it hits $3 billion. But then that wasn't going to happen either. And then it started to fall pretty fast. I mean, did have a massive opening. So the legs, weren't quite there as you needed it to be for, an all-time record. But shoved it back in the theaters, and it's going to do it. Let me know your thoughts on that. One, do you think that's fair? Personally, yeah, sure. I mean, it was never out of theaters, still initial release. They just put it into more theaters. It's going to count. 2, do you like how they did it, though? Are you going to still say, well, they had to do that? Or, hey, number one is number one? Or are you going to factor in inflation and it's not number one anyway? It's just one of the most successful movies of all time, which I'm pretty sure Disney and the MCU will take. So let me know your thoughts on that. Are you an Avatar fan? Are you going to be upset that it's dethroned, or are you just waiting on, your Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5? They're making a lot more Avatars, James Cameron is. But let me know your thoughts on that. This weekend, what do you feel regarding Toy Story 4, how that's going, Annabelle, and of course, the movie that came after Avengers Endgame, SpiderMan Far From Home? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Twitter, and we'll catch you next time.